Hello fellow YouTubers and modelers. In this video I'm going to show you how to make a diorama base that's suitable for, well, more or less every diorama you can think of, or just a vehicle display base. Uh, I'll show you some neat tips and tricks, how I usually construct and build my dioramas, and also some tips how to make them more interesting. So let's have a go. So, starting off, sadly I forgot to take the pictures of the first steps that I did, but I'll explain them rather rapidly. As you can see, the whole base is just one block of styrofoam that I shaped with an X-Acto knife. The top of the road, if you can see up there, is flat, and there's a slight slope from the end of the road and down to the canal down in the right corner. Uh, I'll show you how the road's built in just a second, but just for starters, there's a small ditch right next to the road that I thought maybe someone could take cover in at some point. And there's a small fence going along so that no one will fall into the small canal. And I'm planning on having some grass, some tufts on both sides of the road. But anyway, let's get into some details. Here I'm going to show you how I usually spice up some of my dioramas that I find lack a little bit of interesting scenery around it. Here are some flower, I don't know what you call these in England actually in English, but there are some round, rather long sticks, and they form an excellent base for building telegraph poles like this one. You can see it's very simple, it's just the long stick with some well, planks on the top of it. It's looked rather rudimentary, and I wouldn't recommend using this in a diorama as close to a city or anything. But since we're on the countryside, I think it's reasonable to suggest that these would be standing along roads in 1940s Europe. Hence, some places in my country today, you can find these things along the road. So I think these are a great addition to most dioramas. Now, if you are a regular viewer to my channel, most of you probably aren't, but anyway, you would know that I highly emphasize the importance of test fitting everything. I do this on every build I do several times over. I test fit how do I want them, the tank or soldiers or things to work out, how do I want things to look, especially on this build where I don't really have any idea what I want to do with it. So I just want everything to feel natural, to look natural, and to try out different things and different postures. Uh, and I feel that's a very, very handy guide to myself to where I want to take this build. Oh, but Andy, I hear you cry out, how do you make those fancy roads? Well, here's my fancy tool. It's a paintbrush where I tore off all the brushes and I used a pair of pliers and squeezed it so it forms a little square. And using that, I just push it into styrofoam and hey ho, now you have a cobbled road. Now the next thing I do is to get my Mod Podge and I just smear in the entire road with Mod Podge just to stiffen it up and so that it's solid. I want to mention the manhole that I just poured over. That's just made out of styrofoam. Uh, I made something that was approximately 135 scale, and I think that's a nice touch as well. Now painting and accessorizing is very simple for this kit. I'm just going to use this flat earth brown, and I'm going to use some different types of static grass. I just like to mix up different types in one batch as I go along. I also have these things, some bushes, foliage, is that what you call it? And I'm going to spread these things around, maybe. That's a pretty nice addition. Use some bushes and trees and these little tufts of grass. Everything that can spice things up. I make my own bricks. The way I do it is very simple. I cut styrofoams into pieces that are approximately the size of a brick in 135 scale, and then I put them into this cup with red paint, and then I just shake the cup around, and after a while everything's painted and everything looks very nice. I used the bricks to make this culvert, which is a drainage for the ditches on the side of the road, and it's going to allow the natural water to pass under the road. I find that the culvert is a fine little visual element. It's not too much of an eye catcher, but it does add another little detail that improves the build, in my mind at least. Now I decided to ditch the bushes and hedges, and instead I'm going to build a small stone wall that's built up by a natural stone. It's no bricks this time, and this thing is dead easy to make. You just grab a pen, as I've done here, and you just mark it like so. Uh, just make some stones in approximately the right scale that you want, and then you use a X-Acto knife like this, or scalpel. I'm sorry, scalpel, and you just carve out the rocks uh, in between and on the side and on the top, and then you look a stone wall that looks pretty natural. And then voila! After about 3 minutes of unskilled labor, you have ended up with a result like this. Now we're back to another round of test fitting. You can see the manhole and the just small wall we just built. Sometimes it can be tricky getting the edges to fit properly, but hey ho, you just have to do what you gotta do. Then we get the lamppost, we get a little fence, and the culvert. When it comes to covering up the styrofoam, I have a dead simple technique. I just use cardboard that I use a hell of a lot of wood glue on, and I just use these pins to attach it to the base of the diorama, and that way you can camouflage all the styrofoam, and then usually I paint it black or brown or some color. Now, since this is quite a small diorama, I'm just going to use one electrical pole, and that poses a problem with the wires from the pole, because it's quite hard to get the wire to just stand straight out from 90-degree angle from the pole. So therefore, let's just say that some artillery barrage or something cut the wire, so they just hang down in the grass like this. And I think it's believable. I think they look pretty nice. I use some sort of twisted wire for this, and I think it looks pretty nice actually. Uh, so that's one of my pro tips. If you want to use a detail like this, just use wires that hangs down on the ground, because you can always explain them with they've been struck by artillery or shrapnel or sabotaged even. Depends on the settings of a diorama. Now, as I mentioned in the start of this video, I haven't been completely consistent with taking pictures and videos of the build. Truth is, I was too excited to see how this thing turned out, so I forgot. I'm sorry. But as you can see here, I have applied some paint on the road. I used a German grey mostly, and then I used some different colors on some of the bricks. No, I'm not sorry, not bricks, not cobblestones in the road. And I also applied the static grass with my static grass applicator, and some leaves in the creek and in the ditch. And yeah, I think this thing looks pretty good at this point. And there we are, ladies and gentlemen. We've now finished the base of the standard diorama, as I have now begun to call it. And in its own, I think it's pretty nice. You have a lot of small details here, which can spice up any diorama, in my opinion. You have the electrical post, you have the small fence, you have the culvert, a small stone wall, a manhole in the middle of the road. Did I forget anything? Yeah, the ditch. Yeah, as already you can see, there's a lot of small things here, and all in all, they are pretty nice, and none of them take very long time to build, and none of them are very complicated. But I think that every single one of these pieces add a small visual element, and they all work together in a very natural way. Nothing here looks unnatural, in my opinion. If I can improve anything, I would have used different sort of grass and maybe improved that a bit. But all in all, I think this is very nice, at least as a beginner's diorama. I'm no expert here. But before I let you go, I would like to show you the versatility of this base. For instance, you could tell the story of the 3 captured German prisoners, which not only have to come to terms with the fact that they have been captured and their war is now over, but also they have to be exposed to bagpipes. I have to say I am very, very pleased with this layout. I think the figures look very good, I think the roads look very good, and I think it's the perfect size for a diorama of this type. The figures marching along, yeah, really, this I think is brilliant. This is exactly how I pictured it when I started this build. Or maybe you could tell the story of Hans and Fritz, who have driven their Opel Blitz on a bumpy road and now it's broken down. Hans, why don't you come to the front and help me lift this thing? The bloody differential is broken again. I told you to slow down, but you insisted on going at full speed, you verdammten Schweinhund! Fix it yourself! To any of my German viewers, I do apologize. Accents are not my cup of tea, but I do believe that the circumstances allow it. And here's another one, straight from the Tamiya Churchill box art, where a civilian is appreciating the work that the British tankers have done and is happily going to present them with a bottle of, well, let's say, liquid courage.
Yes, sir. It appears we're going to be late today as well. Yes, it's the bloody engine again, sir. Yes.
I also like this setup quite a lot because it's a very peaceful one. It doesn't reek of war as many other dioramas often do. And of course, the Churchill is in the correct color scheme. It is beige, as it should be. Side note, I had hoped to be picking up one of these things when it was on sale, but sadly it was sold out when I got there. So, that was it. I hope now that I've given you some ideas how you can build a simple diorama base with some details to give it a bit of life, and shown you how you can make all sorts of different diorama out of one simple base like this. I hope you liked it. I hope you find it interesting. If you did, please like this video or give me feedback in the comments. Consider subscribing. I will produce more videos in the future, and hopefully I'll see you again. Thank you for watching.